Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Time for some more creepy videos. So let's have a look.
What actually happened in Roswell, New Mexico on July 7th, 1947? Rancher McBrazel hauled in strange debris to the sheriff's office in Roswell, claiming that a UFO had crashed at his ranch. Immediately, the military got control of the situation and reported in the Roswell Daily Record that a flying saucer had crashed. However, 24 hours later, the military retracted its statement and instead said it was just a weather balloon. When officials asked to see the original debris collected, the military denied the request, saying that it was sensitive scientific equipment. Was the military trying to cover up a real UFO crash? Even though you can watch the full video by clicking on the link in the description below, many people are still wondering.
People in Phoenix are dying to know. What is it?
What is it?
Yeah.
Remember that mysterious Roswell crash incident of 1947? The military covered it up real fast, didn't it? Alien enthusiasts, get ready for some bizarre encounter supposedly involving extraterrestrials. Whatever you do, make sure you don't skip the last one.
If they're just dummies, why should they cover it up?
Long ago, there was a civilization in Mexico called Teotihuacan. Their pyramid-shaped buildings and precise carvings have mystified experts, leading some to speculate they were constructed by aliens. In 1908, the Tunguska event showcased a powerful explosion in Russia that some say came from the hand of aliens. The Roswell incident of July 8, 1947 is perhaps the most famous of these occurrences. According to reports, a crashed alien spacecraft was found in Roswell, New Mexico.
I won't talk to you about what I know about it, but it's very interesting.
The military was said to have quickly covered it up, leaving the world to speculate about what really happened.
He's ended his career to come out and talk about this stuff because he's like, this is nuts. He essentially said that they are illegally hiding it from Congress and they are illegally hiding it from the American people, but they have off-world craft in possession. This is what Bob Lazar's been saying forever. This guy's saying that it was going on for 80 years. This brings us back to the 1940s. This means like Roswell. This is what they were talking about when all the people that were at Roswell, that were at the actual crash site and the actual claim they saw bodies, and then there was two different aircrafts that were flown in to Roswell, New Mexico, and took the wreckage and flew it in two different aircrafts in case one of them crashed. This has all been documented.
History has recorded the first big UFO sighting in the United States is 1947 in Roswell, New Mexico, very famously right outside Roswell. But actually, there was, in some sense, a bigger and more significant event sighting 2 years before, also in New Mexico, at exactly the moment the US government was detonating the first atomic weapon, shortly thereafter used in Japan. And witnesses on the ground saw some kind of object shaped like an avocado, they said, crash land. It was inspected by a lot of locals. There were beings inside, they said, and it was carted away by the US government. Now, people don't want to be called crazy, so no one said too much about it for quite some years, but people within the US government believe it's true, and they believe it so strongly that now, as of this week, the Defense Department's annual spending bill will require, as per Congress, the Pentagon to go back and investigate what really happened. Nick Pope is a former UK Ministry of Defense coming on. So this is a story that most, I think, Americans are not even aware of, but clearly people within the US government believe it's real, or they wouldn't have attached this to a spending bill, correct?
Correct, yes. This is being called the Roswell before Roswell. And you're right, people with some knowledge of these intelligence programs who've been briefing Congress about this made sure that this was put into the legislation. And it's one of many UFO provisions in the new defense bill. The DoD must provide Congress with a list of everything they've found out about this specific incident, but all other incidents and programs from January 1st, 1945 onwards, and anyone involved in these programs or with information about it will be released from their secrecy oaths and non-disclosure agreements, and they'll be able to testify to Congress about this.
So here we have the nuclear connection again. This was around the first detonation in human history of a nuclear device. Subsequent to that, you've had UFO sightings at nuclear missile bases, around nuclear-powered aircraft carriers, nuclear-powered submarines. There's clearly some nuclear, I mean, I don't pretend to understand, but nuclear has some connection to these sightings, no?
That seems to be the case, and again, Congress is demanding answers on this. We had the latest report from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence last week that highlighted the fact that there were several hundred more sightings being investigated, military sightings, than we'd heard of before. Talked about unusual flight characteristics and performance parameters of this. And yeah, we must get to the bottom of this UFO and nuclear connection.
Yeah. I mean, I would think. It feels like we're getting closer. I hope.
8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army. Army officers say the missile, found sometime last week, has been inspected at Roswell, New Mexico, and sent to Wright Field, Ohio, for further inspection. Russia has demanded UN action to get all foreign military personnel out of Greece. Southern soft coal operators have not yet reached agreement with John L. Lewis, but the rest of the soft coal industry has resumed production. The House of Representatives has passed a tax reduction bill by more than the 2/3 which would be required to override a veto. Headline edition will bring you special reports and interviews in a moment.
The American Broadcasting Company and affiliated stations present Headline Edition with Taylor Grant. From all over the world, wherever the day's headlines are made, Headline Edition brings you accurate, timely reports on the news behind those headlines, plus informative in-person interviews with the men and women who made the headlines today. Today's edition presents a roundup of the latest developments in the finding of a flying disc, an eyewitness report of today's significant action in the UN Security Council, Ohio Congressman Thomas A. Jenkins commenting on today's House action on tax legislation, a special report on the status of soft coal negotiations, and the details of today's All-Star baseball game reported from Chicago. Stay in step with history in the making. Stay tuned to Headline Edition. And now, here's Taylor Grant.
Late this afternoon, a bulletin from New Mexico suggested that the widely publicized mystery of the flying saucers may soon be solved. Army Air Force officers reported that one of the strange discs had been found and inspected sometime last week. Our correspondents in Los Angeles and Chicago have been in contact with Army officials endeavoring to obtain all possible late information. Joe Wilson reports to us now from Chicago. The Army may be getting to the bottom of all this talk about the so-called flying saucers. As a matter of fact, the 509th Atomic Bomb Group headquarters at Roswell, New Mexico, reports that it has received one of the discs which landed on a ranch outside Roswell. The disc landed at a ranch at Corona, New Mexico, and the rancher turned it over to the Air Force. Rancher W.W. Brizell was the man who discovered the saucer. Colonel William Blanchard of the Roswell Air Base refuses to give details of what the flying disc looks like. In Fort Worth, Texas, where the object was first sent, Brigadier General Roger Ramey says that it is being shipped by air to the AAF Research Center at Wright Field, Ohio. A few moments ago, I talked to officials at Wright Field, and they declared that they expect the so-called flying saucer to be delivered there, but that it hasn't arrived as yet. In the meantime, General Ramey describes the object as being of flimsy construction, almost like a box type. He says that it was so battered that he was unable to determine whether it had a disc form, and he does not indicate its size. Ramey says that so far as can be determined, no one saw the object in the air, and he describes it as being made of some sort of tinfoil. Other Army officials say that further information indicates that the object had a diameter of about 20 to 25 feet, and that nothing in the apparent construction indicated any capacity for speed.
The materials that we picked up weighed anything. Looked like it was weightless. You couldn't feel that you had anything in your hands. I found one piece of metal, what looked like metal anyway. It was not flexible, but it was as thin as a foil in a pack of cigarettes. It was that thin. One of my boys told me, he said, there's something unusual here. He said, I tried to make a dent in this metal. He says, you can't bend it. You can't make a mark on it. He says, I took a sledgehammer and whammed it. I put it on the ground and whammed it. The sledgehammer bounced off of it. He told me not to say anything. He says, I'll handle it from now on. And that's exactly what he did. When he came out, he said, he told the press that was there, he said, that was nothing but a weather balloon, crashed weather balloon. It was definitely not a weather balloon. And it was an aircraft. So what it could have been, I wouldn't know. I still don't know.
They took pictures, of course. They had a whole flock of microphones there. They wanted me they wanted some comments from me, but I wasn't at liberty to do that. So all I could do is keep my mouth shut. And General Ramey is the one who discussed, told the newspapers, the newsmen, what it was and to forget about it. It was nothing more than a weather observation balloon, of course, which we both knew differently. We left Roswell perhaps around 3:30 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. As you can see, it's flat. It is very difficult. In fact, with just verbal directions, we never would have found it. We had to follow the rancher out there. The following morning, we went out to the site where the crash was. And what I saw, I couldn't believe there was so much of it. It was scattered over such a vast area. So we proceeded to pick up as much of the debris as we could, loaded in a wagon. We filled that up. It took us a good part of the day to do that, because there were such small fragments that we had to do a lot of picking. We found a piece of metal about a 1.5 to 2 feet wide and about 2 or 3 feet long. Felt like you had nothing in your hands. It wasn't any thicker than the foil out of a pack of cigarettes. But the thing about that got me is that you couldn't even bend it, you couldn't dent it. Even with a sledgehammer would bounce off of it. So I knew that I had never seen anything like that before. And as of now, I don't know what it was. It was not anything from this earth that I'm quite sure of. Because being an intelligence officer, I was familiar with just about all materials used in aircraft and in our air travel. This is nothing like that. It could not be. It could not have been.
Now, Roswell, in the world of UFO conspiracy theories, alien crash theories, I don't think there is a bigger one than the Roswell incident in 1947. It still fascinates people to this very day. It seems to have quietened down a little bit now, but I think that this is more of a generational sort of thing. But yeah, so 1947 this happened. A crash occurred in Mac Brazel's farm, his ranch. He went out to investigate, had a little look, went to his sheriff's office, took some materials to the sheriff's office. They involved the military. The guy we saw in the video there, Jesse Wallace, he was the military personnel tasked to go and investigate what this was. Now, this guy knew he wasn't seeing a weather balloon. He knew it wasn't something of this world. I think I've always trusted his word. He seems a very genuine person. He's never changed his story to this day. Well, he passed away a few years ago, sadly, but he never changed his story. And I think he was quite upset about having to tell the lies that he had to tell. That being a weather balloon, Project Mogul. This was apparently. Now, I've never been sold on the idea that this was a weather balloon. I think it's too convenient. Possibly they could have been testing a weather balloon over Roswell, but I've never understood why they would test it out there. So no, the weather balloon theory's never stuck right with me. I don't believe it. I think I'm fully behind this Jesse Wallace here. I think he was telling the whole truth. I really do. One of the things I've never fully believed about the Roswell incident was the video of the alien autopsy. That never sat right with me. It looks too fake to me. Yeah, I'm not sold on that. I think that might have been a bit of misinformation there, but I'm fully on board with Jesse Wallace. I think it's quite sad that he was never be able to sort of be validated for what he did, for his work. You know, he tried to tell the truth, and it didn't work out for him. But yeah, I think I'm fully behind him on this one. So yeah, I think the Roswell incident I think it still stands today to be the best sort of alien crash conspiracy theory out there. So let's take a look at a couple more videos.
Entirely, extremely far away, and they're here. It's true. What I have seen is true. I don't know about the big story, where they came from, what they're like, but certainly these crafts came from another, not just another planet, another solar system entirely, extremely far away, and they're here.
Bob, knowing what you know about at least the propulsion system, what engine that might go wrong and cause a craft to crash, as it allegedly did, for example, at Roswell?
You know, I've wondered about that for a while, and I really can't see how one of these things could crash. But apparently it did. But I can't see where a failure is going to typically occur. I don't care if there's a lightning storm or what locally is going on, unless there was something that occurred within the craft. I don't think there's any external force that's going to act on it, certainly any natural force, and cause any problems, because if you're generating your own gravitational field, you're essentially immune to everything that's going on around you.
If that field should fail for some reason?
Well, yeah, that's why I say if some defect occurred inside, or if something was done unintentionally, as far as piloting the craft, that I could see happening. But I don't buy the story somebody comes cruising in from 30 light years away, runs into a thunderstorm, and crashes into the ground.
Bob Lazar there. There's something about Bob Lazar that has never really sat right with me. I think he's just a bit of a sensationalist. He claimed to have worked with reversed engineered alien technology, most famously at Area 51. He's never shown a shred of evidence to suggest that he did work there, that he's worked with reversed alien technology. Obviously, if he did, it's going to be very hard to sort of show his credentials and produce some evidence, because I would have thought that, you know, security is the highest there is. But he's never shown any kind of evidence. I think he's just I think he's a bit of a showman. I'm not fully on board. I've never been fully on board with what he says. He's got a lot of great stories, but I think that's all they are. I think he's made a lot of this up. It's probably made him quite famous, probably made him a little bit of money out of this. Another thing about Bob Lazar is that he has allegedly got a bit of a criminal record. A couple of things happened in his past. So it kind of suggests that he might not be fully telling the truth on certain things. But for me, no, I don't think he's telling the truth. Other people, you know, fully believe him, and that's fair enough. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But my opinion is that I don't fully trust what he says. I think it's good to look into people's past and to sort of test their sort of theories, and to me, they just don't stand up. Lack of evidence is the biggest thing for me. So yeah, I don't fully trust them. Now I've got my own theory on the Roswell incident, but before I tell you my theory, I just wanted to show you this other clip that I've come across quite recently. So just have a look at this. Another one of these plasma entities that we've been seeing quite recently. This one is probably my favourite one. It looks quite incredible to me. Kind of looks like a kite flying in the sky with a tail. Yeah, these are sort of appearing all over the world. Quite fascinating. Now, my theory on the Roswell incident, just something I've been thinking about over the last few years, really. So there was the theory that it was a weather balloon, and you know they covered it up with just saying that it was a weather balloon and it wasn't actually a UFO crash. Well, sort of my idea was that this was military technology, whether it was reversed engineered from alien technology or not, but it was military technology, and they originally tried to cover it up with a weather balloon story, and that didn't quite work out. So perhaps somebody in the intelligence department in the military kind of leaked information to suggest it was an alien crash, to sort of put people on the wrong path, maybe, and go down a path of it being alien technology, an alien crash. Maybe it's just a theory of mine that it could have been, you know, sort of military technology that was being developed, a new kind of craft. And now the way that I explained it, the bodies that were found in the desert, that they were possibly sort of monkeys or something like that, and that this craft was remotely operated. So, you know, these bodies were supposed to be quite small, possibly the size of a monkey, which were being used within the space, sort of NASA were using them in the space industry to test rockets and things like that. So maybe the military had been testing them in sort of remotely operated vehicles to test maybe G-force, this kind of thing. And they sort of secretly put out that this was an alien craft, just to sort of put people off of the trail that they were testing these things out in the desert. Just a theory of mine. You know, there's theories all over the place, but this one kind of sort of sat right with me. I've not heard anyone say this before. I'm sure people have done, but this was just something that sort of I thought about, really, and it kind of explains a few things. But you know, let me know your thoughts. Okay, I'm going to wrap that one up for today. Thank you for joining me. I just wanted to say a big thank you to everyone who tuned in for the last video. I had a great response from that. So if you have enjoyed the video, please give it a like. Subscribe would be fantastic. And yeah, really hope you enjoyed, and see you on the next one.